Hey guys, Mandilake here. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we want to speak about the importance of understanding things to consider when you are a first-time property buyer. I talk a lot about property investment because it's one of the avenues I am personally involved in. I've used it in order for me to build a portfolio and also to retain the buying power of money. Talk a lot about real estate investments also because it is an avenue that teaches us quite a lot about discipline. You'd see on the previous video, I spoke about the importance of acquiring discipline in our journey to acquire wealth, because it's not just about the outcome, but it's also about what we put into the exercise of generating wealth. So buying property or investing in property makes almost automatic the payments that you have to make. It's mostly with regards to your bond repayment, also with regards to such things as whatever debit orders you actually have to make. It actually helps you understand the importance of automating most of your activities when it comes to investment as well as savings. So that's why I recommend it quite a lot, despite the great returns that you get. The discipline on its own is the first factor that I want to highlight, because most of us rely on willpower to actually make changes in our lives, and willpower is very much subjective to, at times, emotions, incidents that we might have experienced at a particular point in time. The more we allow willpower to be the determining factor, that's why we become very irregular in our contributions or in our discipline. So real estate investment kind of forces you to make those payments, whether it be to the bank, whether it be to municipality at times. If ever you are buying an investment property, the agency fees, they are automatic. It helps you so that you don't have to always think on a monthly basis whether do I want to make this payment or not. It actually is done for you. But I want to highlight three things that I would suggest that you consider if you are a first-time home buyer. Three things for you to consider to know, firstly, whether you are ready for this journey. Number two, to know if you are well prepared in terms of resources. All right. So the first thing that you want to check, and it's mostly, we're going to just start with the costs. You want to look at your affordability, right? So your affordability, according to experts in the financial experts, is 30% or a third of your 30 to 33% of your gross income. So when you're looking at what value of a house you can afford, and not just the bond amount, all your housing costs. So if you take all your housing costs and you then add them together, then you actually check the total. They must not exceed a third or 33 up to 33% of your gross income. All right. So I know at times we get inspired to commit to the dream of our houses at the beginning or before we can afford. And it does not always help, because once you are locked in, that journey goes on for 20 to 30 years. Most people that get to sell houses in 2 years' time or less are normally seen as people that did not take into consideration all the costs, because then they get to be shocked by the revelation of how many costs are involved in buying a house. Then please take all the time you need when you are going to buy your first home. Do your research. So I want to touch on the most important things, and this is the first one, your affordability. So make sure that your housing costs are going to be up to 33% or less, right? That includes your bond, it includes your rates and taxes, it includes your levies, and also depending on whether you are buying a freestanding or you are buying in a complex, that actually will determine how many costs that you actually will have to take into consideration because of freestanding or freehold is normally all dependent on you, as much as most people think it's the cheaper option, but you don't get to share the costs of maintenance, you don't get to share your security costs and all of that because of all of those fall into your space as an individual. But if ever you are in a complex, you get to pay levies for sure. And levies are the sharing of the costs that are involved in buying a property within a sectional title. Yeah, it's a sectional title. So if you buy in a complex and it's a sectional title, then you get to share your costs, security costs, the general grounds and the maintenance of those, and quite a number of the other costs in a manner of levies. But you still have to pay rates and taxes, and that's another thing that people forget to take into account because they think because they're paying levies, it takes care of the rates and taxes. Rates and taxes are to the municipality. Your levies are to your homeowners association. So you must distinguish those and take all of those into account. So take a budget or do a budget, prepare a budget for yourself when you are going to do this, and take all these costs into consideration and check if ever you are, after you've made payments of all of these costs, are you still in the positive in terms of cash flow, or are you in the negative? Because that will also determine whether you'll be able to stand the duration of your tenure for a bond. And this definitely speaks to those who will use a bond. And before I go over this aspect by assuming that everyone will be using a bond. Now, when you are buying your first house or your first home, whether you're buying it to stay in it or you are buying it to rent it out, those decisions are key in informing the kind of financing that you must go for. So over and above your affordability, we want to determine, am I buying this home because I want to stay in it, which is what we call a primary residence for tax purposes. Now, if you are buying this home to stay in it, as a primary residence. If you decide to buy it cash, you can go ahead. There are definitely cash flow implications that we will have to talk about on that, because firstly, if you buy a property, you must know that you're buying a capital asset. I know that could also be a technical term, but a capital asset means it's a fixed asset. It's not something that you can actually use to buy other things. Like you can't just use a piece of your house to buy bread. So that means if ever you commit money, which you could use to buy bread, onto this capital asset, that money will not be usable until either you sell that house or you refinance, right? We can talk about those technical terms later on. So if you buy your primary residence, you can buy it cash, fine. There are certain advantages, but I also would recommend that you use the bank's money so as to save yourself liquidity. But if you're buying an investment property, it is highly recommended that you use the bank's money because of taxes that you will be paying, because there's an aspect of taxes. And if ever you buy your investment property cash, then you will be exposing your rental income fully to taxes with little up to nothing actually when it comes to expenditure or deductible expenses that you can reduce those taxes with. So want you to consider those as important aspects then, because that speaks to the aspect of buying then your investment property. Then we actually move on to ensuring that you get yourself pre-approved. Pre-approval helps you to understand how much the bank qualifies you for in terms of a bond that they would actually offer you. So it's imperative you can speak to bond originators. You've got entities like Uber or Better Bond that can actually assess for you how much you afford before you actually approach the bank. By the time you approach the bank, you already know how much you qualify for, and they also work on the interest expense, the interest rate that you may be charged. So ensure that you consult a bond originator so that they will actually take you through that process, so that by the time you approach the bank, it's an easier process than you actually just doing the whole bond application all by yourself and actually getting to be exposed to what the bank could actually charge you. Third thing, understand hidden costs. Hidden costs in buying property are key for you to discover before you jump on that purchase. Firstly, you must understand that there are costs at the inception of this process. There are lawyers' fees that you have to pay. There are registration costs, registration of the bond in your name that you actually have to pay. You also have to take into account your moving expenses as well. All of those costs are costs that they are enforceable. I want to say they actually are not optional. It's cost that you're going to definitely incur. It's not a matter of you might, you're going to definitely incur them. Whether you get to capitalize them into the bond when you're actually acquiring the bond from the bank, that's an option that you have, but then you must also know that it will impact your monthly repayments when you actually choose to capitalize those. But if you prepare for them by putting away money whilst you are getting ready for that, so that you can actually pay them off, it helps you so that you don't get to increase your monthly installments unnecessarily because of additional costs that would have been involved. I hope those will help someone who is in the process or in the journey of looking for a house, so that you would know things to consider. This is not an exhaustive list for sure. We are going to add more things as we go along. Keep coming to this channel, or subscribe, by the way, so that you can get notified every time we load a new video. Mandilaka here. Thank you.